Hello again, and welcome back to Rethinking Success. I'm Amy, and I want to talk to you about something really serious today, the smoke break. Now, all jokes aside, I don't smoke, and it's not that serious, but it is kind of serious when we think about it, because in the 80s and 90s, and probably the 70s as well, I wasn't alive then, I don't know, smoking was pretty normal, and lots of people did it. And in the workplace, no one blinked an eye when someone was going for a smoke break. In fact, it was expected. 3, 4, 5 times a day, people would just pop out for a smoke. And in some ways, the smoke break wasn't just about smoking. The smoke break was about stepping away. The smoke break was about finding peace in the day. The smoke break was about maybe chatting to someone that you hadn't been talking to, or getting out of a meeting that you maybe didn't feel like being in or that you needed to reset from. Only it was never languaged like this. A couple of weeks ago, I put a post on Instagram and LinkedIn talking about this theory that we used to embrace the smoke break. We've gotten rid of it because not as many people smoke now, but we haven't replaced it with anything. And so why did that happen? We sometimes frown upon people who leave the office for no good reason, who aren't at their desk, who aren't checking their Teams or their Slack messages 24/7. And yet 10, 20, 30 years ago, if people popped out for a smoke break, no one blinked an eye. And so what happened? And what do we do? And what are we missing out on? Now, I'm not saying bring back smoking. That would be a very bad idea. That would not be very well-being, would it? And so it's not about the smoke break. It's about, what did the smoke break give us? What can we learn from that? And why have we gone so far in the other direction that now taking any type of break almost seems impossible? And there are two pieces to that, because I know some of you will be thinking, well, I can go for a walk and I can, pop out and get a coffee. And you can. And if you do that, and if you build that into your day as these micro breaks and micro rests, and you've made it happen, awesome. Like, that's fantastic. I now, speaking from experience, am pretty good at that as well. But I know from being in workplaces and all kinds of different workplaces, organizations, talking to people, it's not as normalized as we might think. I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they were sharing how that they sometimes get a phone call just after 5 p.m. to make sure they've wrapped up the workday and they were working right through until 5 p.m. if they're working from home. And I'm not really sure that's workplace well-being at all. I'd call that maybe a leader with an ego and some micromanagement to the max. That's not helpful. So the idea of the smoke break was unquestioned. It was what everyone did, stepping outside, going to get some fresh air, as they might have called it, finding a little smoking space. When I shared this on my socials, the comments were astounding, ranging from things like, I never smoked, and so I had to stay in the office and pick up all the work for people that would go out and smoke 2, 3, 4 times a day. Add that up, and that's an hour of the working day if you're taking 4 15-minute breaks. A conversation between a leader and an employee who had a medical occurrence and needed to stop smoking. And then because he stopped smoking, he said to his employee, his colleague, we're getting so much work done. Why is this happening? And he realized it was because he wasn't going out smoking 3, 4, 5 times a day. And all of a sudden he had more time, because if you add that up over the week, it's a lot. Now, contradictory to that, I do think we need to bring back breaks. I think we need to bring back some of the breaks, but not the smoking version, what they call micro breaks or micro rests. And there is research to back this, that if we spend a couple of minutes every hour, not necessarily 15, but 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, maybe 10, doing something that allows us to reset, recenter, and find our calm, breath work, meditation, coloring in, reading a novel, listening to some music, sitting under a tree, standing in the grass, going outside and getting some fresh air, blowing some bubbles, whatever it is, then we are going to be better at the end of the day because of it. Because what we're actually doing is we're resetting our nervous system continuously. We're not getting to the end where we're so incredibly depleted and then trying to get everything done and crashing and burning on the couch at 8 p.m. because that tends to be a lot of what has happened. Now, there are a couple of reasons the smoke break has faded out, and I want to talk about them together because it helps to make sense of the situation. Firstly, not as many people smoke, so let's be happy about that. But the other thing that coincided with the decrease of smoking was the increase of technology. 70s and 80s, we didn't all have computers. We weren't all stuck at a desk. We didn't have a phone in our pocket with our Teams meeting and our Slack messages going off. We didn't have emails like we did. And so what has happened in the shift is smoking has decreased, technology has increased, and so we don't have these breaks, but we're available all the time. And we need to let go of some of that. So when I say take a break, I mean without your phone. I know, and that's groundbreaking, isn't it? I mean, some people are still working on taking their phone to bed. We don't do that either. Yeah, no phones in bedrooms. We don't need to take our phones on when we're going for a walk around the block. We don't need to take our phones if we're popping out to sit in the sun for 10 minutes to reset. We don't need to take our phones to meditate. Wild thoughts. But this has become one of the obstacles is we're so attached to these devices and always being on and available. And so because of this, and then the decrease of smoking, which we love, we haven't replaced anything that allows us to take a break or a rest, and we haven't normalized it. Now, interestingly, on my socials posts, the non-smokers who remember this period of time were very vocal about sharing they didn't get breaks because they didn't smoke. And the normalized break was smoking, but not for anything else. And a few people did share they used to say they were just going for a smoke, but they didn't even smoke. So I quite like that. And someone told me that when the smokers would go for a break, they would go for a walk, and they were questioned. Why are you doing that? You don't smoke. Why are you going outside? Well, if the smokers are going, then I should be able to go for a walk. It was never argued, but it was never shared widely with the non-smokers of the office. Now, isn't that interesting? So what we have to do is start to see the idea of a break as being beneficial to productivity. Also, in the comments on these social posts, someone shared with me that that's where the decisions in meetings were made. That's where people were productive, when they were outside, when they were going for a walk. And if you didn't go, you missed out. One person said they weren't a smoker and they often wouldn't go outside. And when the other group would come back in from having their smoke break, decisions had been made and they'd been left out of that conversation because they weren't outside having a smoke break. Now, again, not bringing back smoking, but what about introducing walking meetings? What about introducing group outside time where we go and sit under a tree and we chill? Because in those moments where we're not on screens, we're in a different environment, where we're relaxed, our brain has an environmental shift. And that is actually one of the things that can change our emotional state by changing our environment. And so the smoke break actually benefited us in more ways than just hitting that nicotine craving that some people might need it. I guess that's why you do it, right? To have that break. It also allowed people to go into a different environment, to connect in casual ways, to have, conversations that are a little bit more casual, but still might have been about the job, allowing people to solve problems. Now, to be able to do this, I think what we need to understand is that workplaces that get it are doing it. And so there are two I want to share with you. Adobe, I'm sure most people know of the Adobe company, they actually schedule not micro breaks or micro rests. They take it even further, and they have what they call switch off days, or global wellbeing days, I think they're called. And they are scheduled days once a quarter where no one is to do any work. You go and do what you like. No emails are sent, no Slack messages are sent, no tasks are actioned. It is a absolutely everyone involved switch off day, so that everyone knows when they're off getting their massage or their mani-pedi or drinking their nice coffee or, whatever it is that we're doing, they're not going to come back to a full inbox. Now that matters. So that type of thinking is helpful because that's a quarter break. But I think what's even more aligned with this idea about the micro break is what Patagonia have. And they have a policy or a way of thinking that says, if the surf's good, go surfing. Now, it actually has a name, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. I think it is something like the go surfing policy. And what it means is if the weather's good, if the waves are up, if the snow's falling, go and do the thing that makes you feel good, that allows you to look after your well-being. It's not just about surfing. It could be surfing, could be skiing, could be going for a hike, could be, just sitting on the beach, whatever it is. But if the weather's good, go and do it, because it's not about the 9 to 5. It's about getting the job done. And if you choose to go surfing in the middle of the day, that's cool with us, but you need to get the work done later. And so that's the micro break in its essence. If you choose to have multiple breaks during the day, that's fine, but you got to get the work done still. Yeah. And now the other thing we know too is that we're not productive for the entire 7 or 8 hours we're at work. We're just not. I think on average, it's about 4 hours of that day that we're really productive for. And this is why some companies have successfully been able to implement and operate the 100-80-100 rule. So that is 100% of the work, 80% of the time, 100% pay. Yeah, that's it. That's what that means. 100-80-100. We're doing 100% of the work for 100% of the pay, but 80% of the time, because on average, people are really only productive for about 4-ish hours a day. So we're already taking the breaks by procrastinating, by looking on social media, by shopping online, by popping to the staff room and having an extra cup of coffee. We're already doing that as a way to take breaks, but why not normalize it? This is where it actually starts to have impact, because people aren't going, oh, just sit here and scroll on social media because it actually looks like I'm doing some type of work on, a Teams app, but I'm really just switched out. We give people permission. Hey, you need a 10-minute break? Go do that. You want to go for a walk for half an hour? Go do that. You want to shut your laptop and have a meeting with someone while we're actually going for a walk outside? Go do that. And so permission is key, because otherwise we have people thinking they have to be on and working all the time. Now, I see this. I go into workplaces and organizations, I have these discussions, and people say, oh, we'd love to be able to have a walking meeting. We'd love to be able to take a couple of minutes, once or twice a day to do some meditation. We'd love to be able to go to that grass patch over there and take our laptops out and work under the tree. And when I share this with leadership, no one ever says no. They say, yeah, of course we can do that. Of course that makes sense. Of course we should be doing that, because that's how people want their well-being to be looked after. They're not saying we don't want to work. They're saying we want permission to work differently and to have these types of breaks. And so it's not about a perk that we add on to the day. It's about the infrastructure. It's about how we build these things into the work we're already doing. And this is crucial. This is essential. This is what makes a big difference when it comes to understanding that wellness isn't an add-on, it's part of how we work. In the last episode, I talked about feel, work, team, and lead well. That's what we're coming back to. So if you're wondering why we've gone from such if you're wondering why we've landed at such an intense period of working, this is one of the reasons. We haven't given people permission to have breaks. We haven't replaced the smoke break. Yeah. Now, don't take up smoking. I didn't say that. But what we haven't done is normalize these breaks. We are thinking that if we maximize time on clock, we maximize output. And the research says no. We're just not that productive for that long. We need breaks. In the school environment, we give children and students brain breaks. Adults need brain breaks too. We are not any different. So if you're looking for something to do for your people, for your well-being, maybe you work for yourself, maybe you have the ability to do this, start to think about what a micro break looks for you. For me, last year, I was super obsessed with killer Sudokus. I was trying to do one of those a day. Admittedly, when I started, it did take me 3 hours. So that's not really aligned with a break, but I did get it down to 15 to 20 minutes. So, now it's a little break if I need to do something. I actually have a painting desk opposite my work desk. So I'm usually working on some type of painting. I get up and do a little bit of painting. I might go for a quick walk around the block. I might do a 10-minute meditation. I might take my cats out in the garden. I might sit in the sun and eat my lunch. Or without my phone. That's what's important. Yeah. So we need to be thinking, what do these micro breaks and micro rests look like for us? And how do we build them into our day and the infrastructure of our workplaces and give people permission to do that? Because that is what benefits well-being. All right, wonderful people. Hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation. Let me know what your micro breaks and micro rests are for you. And if you want to go and look at some really interesting comments around this, go and find the smoking posts on Instagram or LinkedIn. And as always, have a wonderful day, night, whatever time of day it is for you. And I'll see you somewhere soon. Bye.